So the other day, I got an email from someone who was a professional translator of light novels, and they were talking about some of the cultural differences that come between Japan and the US about how society is viewed and the importance of fitting in to society in Japanese culture. And I found it pretty interesting, and it's something I've been meaning to address for a long time because every once in a while I get comments on my videos that are saying things like, well, this is from a very Western perspective. This isn't really what it's like in Japan. And obviously, anime and manga coming from Japan means they're far more, influenced by the culture surrounding them. And it can be difficult for someone from the West to relate to some of those things. But I've always found this to be a kind of interesting stance because of the fact that, to me, so much of anime seems to be countercultural, and so many of the people who are into anime in the West, in the US, are also part of a countercultural movement. Liking anime and being the kind of person who likes anime isn't really normal in either Japan or the US, or likely a lot of places on Earth. I had this sort of realization when I was growing up because I used to hang out on anime forums a lot, and there would be people on there who were like high school kids who would say things like, I can't talk about anime to anyone in my town because I'll get beat up. Or like, it's super not allowed. My school has policies against it. I would hear stuff like that all the time from people living in middle America, people just living out somewhere in the country along the Bible Belt, places where not being a Christian or not being a straight person or not, being into the things that everyone else is into can get you into legitimate trouble. A lot of people talk about how in Japan, the nail that sticks out gets beat down. And that's a big part of their culture, is trying to fit in with everyone else. But I think that's true everywhere. Now, in the US, in the liberal media, the art that we by and large consume, a lot of people anyways, there's this image of be who you are, be yourself, be exactly who you want to be. And it's promoted through a lot of the art that comes out here. However, I don't think that is reflective of what our actual culture is in a lot of America. Maybe in some of the big cities, maybe if you live in LA or New York, everyone's their own weird character. But in a lot of the US and a lot of small towns, you're really expected to be a certain way, and going against that is frowned upon. Now, I come from a fairly liberal environment. I come from a place where you can be somewhat weird, but I, myself, have always been bullied and picked on growing up for being different. It was never like seen as a positive that I just decided to be who I am growing up. I got made fun of for having long hair my whole life. I had hair of at least this length for most of my childhood. I would, get made fun of for liking Pokemon after it stopped being cool. I got made fun of for liking anime. And those are all really the tangible details of why I got made fun of. It was really because my personality was different, that people didn't understand me, and so whatever they could latch onto about me is what they would pick on, I don't think I was made fun of, for being into anime. I think if I had been a cool guy who seemed normal, who other people wanted to hang out with, and then I was also into anime, then I think maybe even that could have made other people realize that anime wasn't weird, or make them stop thinking of it as weird. But even in a culture as liberal as the one that I come from, there are plenty of people who frown on being different. And even now, you can probably tell I don't come across as the most normal guy. And I purposefully don't try to just, join the crowd. I have lots of people all the time commenting on my videos about how I look weird or stupid. Why are you wearing sunglasses indoors? Why do you have a giant beard? Why do you surround yourself with anime characters? And because to me, it's very important to me that I remain true to myself, that I do what I want to do and be the person I want to be and not try to be what everyone else wants me to be. That's important to me personally, but that is countercultural. That's like, that's me deliberately saying, fuck what's considered normal, fuck what you guys are all saying you want me to do, I do what I want. And I think that anime is by and large a counterculture movement, both in Japan and in the US. Because while there are a lot of cultural ideals of Japanese society that are upheld by anime and manga, and while a lot of the characters are expected to, to eventually become upstanding members of society, the reason most anime characters tend to be like otaku or to be people who are off the beaten path is because that's the kind of people who watch anime, is people who are off the beaten path. Otaku are supposed to be freaks. They're not normal people. And I think that anime has two minds about itself in that way, where, otaku is a very self-deprecating culture. It's people who know they're weird and aren't proud of themselves and are just kind of admitting it in their media, Just like how I don't come on here and say like, well, no, I'm totally normal. Like the stuff I'm doing, of course everyone should accept this and think this is okay, No, it's not like that. I'm often, down on myself. I'm like, do you really want to be like me? Like this is who I'm out there, so keep that in mind. And I think a lot of anime is like that too. But at the same time, there are a lot of anime which are about embracing what makes you different and embracing, being someone off the beaten path. There's a lot of deliberately countercultural anime. One of the biggest ones that comes to mind, especially about being an otaku, is Otaku no Video, where the whole plot of the OVA is that it's about this guy, becoming an otaku and straying away from what is seen as normal, and then he loses everything in his life. He loses his girlfriend, he loses his spot on the tennis team and stuff because he becomes obsessed with otaku culture. And then he has this revelation at the end of the first episode where he's like, no, fuck this. Fuck people telling me, that this is weird and that I can't do this. I'm gonna prove everybody wrong by becoming the ultimate otaku, and I'm gonna build an empire, and I'm gonna make otaku the way to be. And then in episode 2, the whole thing is about him climbing up the ranks and becoming this, like what, president of the world or whatever at the end. Like, it goes way over the top, but the whole message of it was that, to just embrace the nature of being an otaku. And all of it is interspersed with these interviews with like, these live action interviews with otaku who are all like deeply ashamed of themselves. They all have their faces blocked out because they don't want to be outed as weird otaku people, It's pretty obvious that being an otaku, even like they're acknowledging that it's not normal, that it's something that is shameful, and a lot of the people who are into it are ashamed of themselves. But the message of the OVA is to tell you not to be ashamed of yourselves, and instead to rise up and be the otaku overlords, essentially. And there's a lot of anime that has a clear message of going against the defeatist idea of Japanese culture. Samurai Champloo is a great example, and I wrote about this in my analysis of the series, that it's about these characters who do whatever they want, who are very outlandish, especially Mugen. He does not give a fuck about what society wants of him. He's this violent, crazy madman. And all throughout the series, he encounters people who say, it can't be helped. This is the way it is. This is how the world is. This is how society is. And he basically tells them, fuck that, Fuck that, take the power into your own hands, Rao fight the power and all that shit. Obviously, shows like Gurren Lagann are all about fighting against the odds of society and becoming great, It's the plot of like most anime. It's about going against the pressures of society and being yourself. A lot of light novel characters are struggling with, the fact that society frowns upon who they are, but they're trying to come to grips with themselves and decide that it's okay to be who they are. So, that battle, that push and pull that the otaku are feeling is what so much of otaku media is about. And I think the same is true for a lot of Western media. The reason we have so many movies and shows and people talking about how you should be yourself is because we have so many people who grew up being beaten down by society. You know, the reason you have someone like me who comes on camera and tells everyone, hey, be yourself. It's more fun. It's okay. You'll be happier if you just embrace who you are. And, you know, there's a reason that I show myself in this room full of otaku shit, because I know this is all weird. Like, that's the point. That's why it's there. It's to say, hey, look at me. You guys think I'm a smart, cool guy? Well, look what this smart, cool guy is into. That means you can be smart and cool and be into this stuff. You can be successful and be an anime fan. You can be happy. You can be like, you know, you can have money and a career. You can have everything you want while also being into whatever you want and looking however you want, you know? And like everyone has their own standards they'll throw at you, but like for me it's always been about bucking those standards. You know, I got a girlfriend one time because of my Little Pony videos, you know, which people would say like, ugh, what kind of person makes MLP videos? What are you, gay? It's like, no, I got a lot of money out of doing it. I got a relationship out of doing it. I got everything I wanted, happiness, everything in the world, you know, out of doing this stuff. That's the message I'm trying to convey to people, because I grew up with people constantly shaming me for the things I liked, with people telling me you're not allowed to have long hair, you're not allowed to be into anime, you're not allowed to be different, and I said, fuck all of you. And that's a big part of why I'm so into anime, because anime reflects the counterculture I was already a part of, you know? I grew up with parents who were decidedly non-religious, who were, you know, very liberal, but often just apolitical in general, who never really believed in, like, you know, being what society wanted them to be. They were punks, you know. My parents worked in countercultural like shops, like stuff that was selling to the identity of going against the grain, you know. My mom listened to punk music and rock music, and that's what I grew up with, you know. So I always had it instilled in me that I should fight the system. And I look at anime and I see all these shows saying, fight the system, you know. And there are some shows that say to embrace the system, and you know, I might criticize those shows and say, like, fuck these characters for trying to embrace the system. And people say, well, it's Japanese culture, it's different. And I'm like, no, it's not different. Because if there was an American show that was telling you that you have to be a part of the system, I'd be mad at that show too. And there are lots of those things. I was just watching a review of this movie, God's Not Dead, which is like some corny, like Christian propaganda film where they were trying to suggest that if you're an atheist, you will die because God will kill you. And it was like this piece that was supposed to make you believe in God, you know, like, and of course I'm going to reject something like that. So I don't think it's as different as people make it out to be. Yeah, Japanese culture is more harsh. It's even worse about, you know, beating people into the ground and telling them to be a part of society. But to me, the point of stuff like anime and of art in general is to fight that tide, and so much of anime tries to do so. I think everything that Gainax and Trigger have ever worked on is extremely countercultural. It's always about bucking trends and fighting the norms and doing what you want to do and going all out with your own creativity and being yourself, you know. I think Shinichiro Watanabe has always been doing the same thing, and that's a big part of why those are some of my favorite directors and some of my favorite writers. And, you know, like, in the US, the stuff I'm a fan of is also like that, you know. I'm a huge fan of movies like Speed Racer, which is all about embracing who you are and the people around you and becoming the best version of yourself possible. It's the same stuff. So yeah, I think that a big part of why anime is popular in the US, and there's a reason why, like, most of the people who are into anime are nerds. Like, if you look at what an anime fan is, it's usually someone who you wouldn't think of as a normal person. And it's a cause and effect. Like, the reason that people get into anime is that they are rejecting the culture they're from, you know? Why else would we be borrowing? So, like, we're looking at a completely different culture's media output, this weird thing that's happening in this other country. And, you know, a large number of Americans and people from the rest of the world, people who don't like what their own country is doing, don't like the things that they're seeing on TV here, are latching on to this culture from somewhere else that resonates with them. And even in Japan, that culture is abnormal. It's not a culture of normal people don't watch anime in Japan, you know? There are some anime that are aimed at a broader audience, but like there's a reason that otaku culture is you know, frowned upon there. And I think it's really funny whenever the debate comes up over the word otaku, because there's this sort of idea that otaku was an insult in Japan, and then Americans like co-opted it and made it into a thing that people are like proud about. Like, yeah, I'm an otaku. That's, you know, I'm into anime. And people were saying we were using it wrong because they were like, in Japan, it's an insult. And I'm like, yeah, but in America, it's also an insult. We're using it as a badge of honor because we're rejecting society. You know, that's what the reason otaku became a popular term in the US was because of Otaku no Video. Because Otaku no Video was about embracing being an otaku and saying fuck you to society. And then Otakon, the big US anime convention, named themselves after Otaku no Video. They play it at the beginning and end of every convention at Otakon. They start off and end off by playing a screening of Otaku no Video in one of the rooms there. And so the whole reason we have otaku as a term, as a badge of honor term, is because Otaku no Video made it a badge of honor term. Because Gainax were proud of themselves for being otaku at the time, particularly the guy who started it, the Ota King, as he calls himself, or did call himself for a very long time. You know, it was about saying, yeah, we are who we are, and fuck everybody else. So to me, of course otaku is something I want to call myself, because not because I think it's normal in Japan, specifically because it's not normal in Japan, because it's a countercultural, it's like being a punk, it's like being any other you know, counterculture movement identity thing. So yeah, like it's hard for me to kind of explain that stuff though in like an analysis video if I'm like, you know, getting mad at a character for doing what's normal in society, and people like say things like, well, that's how it is in Japan, and I'm like, yeah, but if it was someone doing what's normal in the US, I'd also be mad at them, you know? I'm always mad at a character who isn't doing what's best for themselves. And even in like weird circumstances, like an example of this was when I talked about Netoge no Yome in the big Weeb cast, and I was getting mad because the two main characters were like the main girl just wants to fuck the main guy, and for like no reason whatsoever he's not doing it, you know. And I was getting mad about it, and people were like, yeah, but this is Japan, it's different, people don't just fuck on the first day in Japan. I was like, they don't do that here either. I would be mad no matter what country this took place in, because I'm not mad at them for logical reasons. I'm mad at them for not doing what I want to see. I'm mad at them for not, you know, being different from societal norms. I want to watch a show about characters who are not being normal, you know? So yeah, that's I think you get the point. I've kind of restated it a few times, but, you know, it's just, for me, that's a big part of the appeal of a lot of my favorite anime, is that they are deliberately rejecting the culture they come from, which is something that I feel I have also done, by and large, in my life. If you think that, you know, that because I'm an American and we're taught to be ourselves, that's why I'm able to be myself, it's really not, because our culture doesn't actually teach that. Kids made fun of me for being different. Society looks down on me for being different, and I fight against it. And the same is true for the people who are calling themselves otaku with pride in Japanese culture.